And then
I've live streamed before for like an hour and a half, and then decided I don't want to do this.
I don't like it. What was, I'm just going to jump into it. Hello, good morning, friends, and welcome to a Hasty Podcast. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast. I'm here with a guest, Pinata Time. Hi, Pinata Time.
Howdy, I'm Pinata Time. Shall I go into the spiel of who I am, or?
Yes, let's absolutely do that. But first, I just want to hear about this live streaming. You tried to live stream, and you didn't like it. Why?
Because I'm always worried something will go horribly wrong. Because, and also considering I've only done it once or twice, not too many people showed up. Enough people showed up, but not too many. And the main problem is I'm always afraid something will go horribly wrong. I have it hooked up so it's just streaming my iPad screen. So I'm always afraid some message is gonna pop up that's gonna destroy my entire privacy or something. I don't know.
So it's kind of like, yeah, I think it's a technological limitation because you're doing it from your tablet or whatever, and not
I do
not
everything.
Computer. Oh,
you should probably explain. Well,
that's wild.
I'm an animator.
Yeah. We'll actually introduce you for realsies now. No, I had to hear about this, and I didn't want to forget about it. I'm like, you tried streaming. I want to talk about that. I don't know. I stream a lot, but yes.
I had fun with it. There's just enough stress that it's,
That's understandable, actually. We'll get into that more in a little bit, but let's really introduce yourselves. Of course, everybody listening, I'm Weston Hasty. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast, but today, more important than me, we have a guest. It's a very special episode, a longer one even, and I'm here with Pinata Time. I'll let you introduce yourself however you like. Go for it.
Howdy, I'm Pinata Time. I make short cartoons on my YouTube channel called Pinata Time, mainly focusing on a series called Space Station Arbitrary about two astronauts, Ralph and Mac, as they travel through space. Or maybe they don't. Who knows? Space really isn't important. In fact, it's quite arbitrary in the series.
Space, not space. Who cares?
Yeah,
you decide. You be the judge.
At the beginning of the series, it kind of mattered, and then as it kept going, it's just like, oh, they're at a bowling alley. Oh, they're on Earth? Wait, how does that? But they're not on Earth. Okay. It's just I don't know. I stopped caring pretty quickly about keeping things. It's like SpongeBob. Who cares if he's underwater or not? Just have a fire, have a grocery store, whatever,
Yeah, the space thing, right? The space, I don't know, it's just the underlying thread that kind of connects the setting, I guess, but you're not tied down to it.
Exactly.
Right?
If I want to do an episode where they're climbing trees for some reason, then damn it, I'm going to do it. Can I curse like that, or am I not allowed? I forget.
Yeah, you're allowed. I typically don't, but yeah, go for it. Anything.
No, I didn't mean to.
I mean, if you just start... No. I just mean, I don't typically, but you're allowed to do anything. That's totally fine. Just don't get me canceled and start throwing slurs or something.
That's about as bad as I get, so don't worry.
That's great.
Sorry if I did something wrong.
No, absolutely not. No, this is the podcast, not the gaming channel, the streaming channel. I'm not too worried about it. So honestly, the swearing thing, the only reason it's an issue at all is because YouTube, right? But the podcast isn't just restricted to YouTube, so it really doesn't matter. That's
good. My whole policy is I kind of want to make something not my if you watch my content, it's very tame, but I don't think of my content as family friendly or for kids, not because it's edgy or has swears or anything, but because I don't know, I think of it kind of if anyone knows what Homestar Runner is, they say crap, they drink beer, they smoke, but they don't do anything worse, so it's not for kids, but it's not for a teenager could watch it.
It's such a shame that, but I'll say it right now. If anybody
there's more media like that, because everything either has to be super edgy or super tame, and
everybody that's listening to this, down the description of wherever you're listening or watching this, there will be a link to Pinata Time's channel. So definitely check that out. You can check out these cartoons so you know what we're talking about here. And I get the vibe that you're talking about because it's not it's definitely not for kids, where it's just a kid's cartoon. But YouTube's hilarious. It likes to think that if it's not for kids, then it has to be for adults, and if it's for adults, it should be vulgar. You should be making exactly. South Parks and stuff or something like that.
Yeah, they also look at anything that looks drawn and just assume that's for kids. Yeah,
that must be for kids.
I've once or twice I've had to evaluate my thing or whatever and tell them no, it's not don't auto set it for kids.
Right. And it wouldn't even be so bad if it weren't for the fact that like YouTube will take away so many of your features if it thinks it's for kids.
And they'll only advertise it to kids, which makes sense if it is for kids, but they're not. So it's, sort of that tough area.
You lose your comments, you lose playlists, you lose all these things. I remember checking, this was before the giant Kappa thing happened. I remember getting onto the YouTube Kids app on my phone. I downloaded it for this specific purpose. I'm like, I need to know. I better not show up on this app. I don't make content for kids.
Yeah,
so I go to the app specifically, be like, can I look for myself on this app? And I couldn't find myself. I was like, yes,
that's good.
Yes, even though I don't swear, YouTube doesn't think I'm quite kid friendly enough to be relegated to the app. So
yeah, exactly.
But it's like animated stuff must be so much harder, though.
I'm sorry?
I said animated stuff must be so much harder, though, to get by.
Yeah, because they always want to assume. And, I have nothing against things like South Park or Family Guy.
No.
I can enjoy that now and then. It's fine. It's just not what I'm making, and I just don't want it to be, all or nothing,
Right. And it just
that's
feels
sort
like
of
that.
awkward. It's so hard to hit that nail of... Because I watched stuff like what I'm making when I was 12. I'm kind of making the show that I would watch if I was 12. But I'm also thinking of it for older audiences, you know what I mean? So I don't want a 12-year-old to think, oh, I can't watch this for any reason. I also don't want a 12-year-old to think this is made for me only or something. I don't know. It gets complicated. There are so few pieces of media that actually bridge that gap because you're either like a Nickelodeon show and adults can enjoy Nickelodeon shows, but it's technically advertised to kids, or you're like an Adult Swim show or a Fox show. I wish there was more middle ground.
Yeah, and in theory there kind of is, right? But I don't think media sees it that way. Because you said 12, but if you bumped your target demographic to say, I don't know, 14-year-olds, right? You hit that sweet spot of it's young, but it's definitely not kids. It's not children kids, right? They're kids, but they're teenager kids, which is a very different realm because you're very close to that young adult, right? If you're between 14 and 18, 18 would be it's considered legally adult, but you're young adult. You're YA content, right? So there's this sort of sliding scale of once you leave the preteens, you're kind of leaving childhood, you're moving into the teenager territory, and then you enter young adult very quickly. And it's interesting that when you have content that is meant to appeal to young adults, let's say 14, 15, 16, something like that in that realm, you can make content because this is the age group of people that are trying to think a little bit bigger, right? Trying to actually take on bigger world concepts.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of young adult content, whether you're talking about, I don't know, romance, politics, things or whatever. These young people are starting to tackle those very same issues that a 20-year-old would as well. A 20-year-old might take it with more experience or more knowledge of the world with them into the show or the cartoon, but you're still tackling the same issues in many ways. So you have this sort of sliding scale that you could possibly target with X, Y, issues, but in terms of media, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's treated that, especially not on YouTube anyway. You don't have a sliding scale of, I'm targeting young adults, right? It's just is it targeting adults or is it targeting children? It's but the whole 13 to 18 category is young adult, right?
It's
or close to it.
Yeah. I just think of my stuff as a TV PG, right? Kind of like The Simpsons, maybe. Where it's if a 12-year-old watches it, yeah, go nuts. But I'm in my young 20s. I'm designing it for anyone, really. I don't know.
Simpsons, I feel like, is a good example.
Hate the term family friendly because that immediately makes it sound like it's less than it is. I don't know.
Yeah, it used to not be that way because it used to be. There used to be child friendly, and then there was family friendly, which meant the whole family could watch it. But now it feels like if you say family friendly, it's oh, it's for kids. No, it's just okay.
It's I feel like, and I wish this isn't how it worked. I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah.
Sadly, this is kind of how it does work. People look at things like Cartoon Network shows, we'll say Regular Show or something, and they say, if you're in your 40s and you have a 10-year-old who watches it, you'll probably watch it and like it. But if you're in your 30s and you don't have any kids, you're probably going to say, oh, that's for kids, I'm not going to watch it. I wish my thing is designed for anyone, and I truly mean that in You could be a 30-year-old living by yourself and like my show. You could be a 12-year-old who just happened to stumble across it, and it's probably not going to be that bad for you. It's just sort of that nice middle ground. They smoke, they do very, very light cursing. I don't endorse smoking or anything, but it's not for kids, I don't know.
Again, yeah, because they're, that's the difference between, typically, I think, content targeting children and content targeting not children, right? Is that the older you target your audience, the more you're comfortable as a creator to represent real life as it is, as opposed to how it's been idealized. So for children, everything's squeaky clean. The world's a happy place and that kind of thing, because you're trying to give children, if you're creating children's content, you're trying to give them an optimistic view on what the world is and what you want it to be, etc. Right? They have the entirety of their future to discover that real life is a little bit more complicated and hairy and all that kind of stuff. They're still young.
Yeah.
Children, you're not trying to overwhelm them with ginormous concepts. You're just trying to start simply. But then as you sort of target an older audience, people smoke. So pretending smoking doesn't exist doesn't help them.
Exactly.
People swear. Pretending swearing doesn't exist doesn't help them. People drink. Pretending drinking doesn't happen doesn't help them, etc. And again, the older you get, the bigger the concepts you can tackle.
And I have nothing against per se kids shows, whatever you want to call it. Some of my favorite shows ever are Cartoon Network shows and stuff. So I have nothing against that. Some of the deepest stuff you'll find could be in children's media, per se children's media, like Peanuts or other media that handles more emotional based topics, things that aren't inappropriate, but things that other shows might not be willing to go to.
Yeah.
And my show isn't that, just to be clear. For anyone trying to see my show, it's a goofy, wacky time that's completely silly and not meant to be taken seriously at all. It's just a full-on comedy. It's very akin to things like Cartoon Network shows, but with a little more bite, I guess. I don't know.
And like you said, you were kind of like, you mentioned Homestar Runner, and like in terms of like the art style, right? Like I get that, like, what am I looking for? Like that sort of home-brewed feeling. That obviously,
it's like 3 people are making this in their basement. That's what it is.
And I think that's really fun. And I don't think you see a lot of that. I mean, I don't run across it on YouTube so much anymore. Something that kind of looks and feels like, kind of like something that was made much longer ago than it is, but
yeah, so you know what Homestar Runner is?
I do know what it is. I never got into it when it was like in its prime because I didn't actually have internet then, so I didn't get into it in its prime. But I do know what it is. Yeah,
it's like the perfect example of what I'm going for, which is to say, like I said, they smoke, they drink. But I was watching Homestar Runner when I was like 9 years old. And it wasn't bad for me at all, because it really wasn't, it's not that bad. But no one would ever say, oh, it's a kid's property either. I wish there's so few examples of things like that. I wish we had more things like that.
And there might be, but it's so, like, I don't know if it's just hard to find. I don't know if it's just not well represented, but
I think it's because networks are trying so hard now to separate what age group they go for. Because they gotta appeal to that 12 to 7 demographic so they can sell toys, or they gotta appeal to that 20 to 30-year-old demographic so they can sell the merchandise to the T-shirts and stuff. It's if they find out, oh, a lot of kids are watching our show, well, our network isn't for kids, so too bad, canceled, even if it's doing well, or whatever.
That's an interesting point too, especially when you're talking about like network television or whatever. There's
really
so much wrapped up in toys and merchandise.
I'm really happy we're in the internet age where anyone can make anything.
Yeah.
It's a little tougher now because everyone is making everything,
It does feel that way.
I'm pretty confident. I'm not trying to sound cocky at all.
No.
But if I was doing this show, the show I'm currently making, in 2002, I would have a whole lot more people watching me now, only because content like this was so much rarer back then.
Yeah.
Now anyone with an iPad can animate, and it's a double-edged sword. It's like, that's great, it's wonderful, everyone can follow their dreams. But also, if everyone's following their dreams, then no one's gonna be noticed,
Well, and it's, I absolutely understand that feeling, and I just don't know how much maybe whether or not I don't believe that or don't want to believe that as someone who also creates stuff on the internet, But
Yeah, that's what I'm saying to everyone out there. Don't even bother now. That's what I'm
because
saying.
on the one hand, I understand what you're saying. If you were making your cartoon in 2002 when like this was just not a thing people did, so you had much less competition, you would stand out a lot more, and that is awfully true. But
and people were a lot more willing to take this stuff.
Yeah.
Because now, a lot of animation now is story time, and I have nothing against story time animation. I watch a lot of story time animation, but that's just not what I want to make. I miss the days of Homestar and Ed's World and other fully sort of series type online shows.
And what I will say, though, is that back then, like if you took this show back to 2002, you'd stand out more, but you'd stand out to such a smaller audience because the audience, the people that were watching this kind of content, which back at the time felt like, oh my god, there's so many people watching. But like, if you had, I don't know, 1,000 followers or whatever on Newgrounds, I don't remember how that worked. If it's called followers or whatever.
I still upload to Newgrounds because they're still up. So I figure, and that's honestly where I get a lot of comments from random people because that is a place where animation thrives still, luckily.
Well, it's because I think Newgrounds users that are still using Newgrounds to this day are just really passionate people.
Yeah, exactly.
So whereas like on YouTube, you have a lot of people just passing by, right? Because everybody's on YouTube. But
it's true. If I get a good comment on YouTube, it's like, good job. If I get a good comment on Newgrounds, it's like, well, I love the animation in this part, and the particular scene, and the writing of this part. This part could have maybe used a little more work, but they're like a whole lot more dedicated to the actual craft, which I appreciate. So I not that I don't like YouTube. YouTube's great. But why not both?
Well, yeah, no, that's just it. Like, honestly, if you can and like it makes sense for what you make, then yeah, you should diversify where you put all your stuff always. So like if you make cartoons, it's like, well, you aren't limited to YouTube. Go to all the places that will accept cartoons. So like in Newgrounds, and I don't know where else personally, but like anywhere.
I can't think of any other. I think albino sheep died a long time ago.
Albino sheep. I don't know anything about it. So
yeah. So someone out there hearing that will be like, oh my god, I haven't thought about albino sheep in 30 years. It was like a Newgrounds, really. It was just a Newgrounds clone.
I know with I've experimented with doing gaming content. I've experimented with posting to several places in the past that never panned out for me, but it's always worth trying, right? I've uploaded to Dailymotion. I uploaded to VidMe before VidMe kicked the bucket. I put my stuff everywhere that I can just to see what sticks, and nothing has really YouTube especially for gaming. It's because if you're making videos, it's kind of going to be YouTube or nothing if you're streaming, Twitch or YouTube, whatever. But if you're not doing gaming like I am, if you're doing literally anything else, go ahead and put your content anywhere you can and see what sticks. Who knows?
One of the very few memories I have, you just reminded me of Dailymotion. One of the very few memories is of me bootlegging TV shows and burning them onto DVD when I was younger. Burning them from
Dailymotion?
Yeah, because people would upload full episodes of shows, and when I was a kid, I was a little smart little jerk with a computer, and I used to burn homemade DVDs of stuff. It's really funny. All these memories coming back now.
I mean, there is definitely an age, I think, where you discover that pirating is possible and not hard to do.
Yes, especially if you care enough. And at the time, when you're a kid, and the stuff you want to watch is like random cartoon shows that your parents are like, well, we're not going to waste the money on buying you episodes of shows.
No.
You find a way,
You find a way. It's like, I want to watch this show. My parents said no. But I have access to the internet, so I'm about to become a high seas pirate because I'm going to get this stuff.
It really was like that back in the day, man. It reminds me, kind of off subject, but another thing I miss, I'm happy the internet exists, I'm happy all this stuff. One thing I do miss about cable back in the day is in the 90s and the 80s, they were so willing to experiment. You could turn on a channel and watch something and be like, what the crap did I just see? And then never see it ever again. Because back in the day, any network would just be like willing to try any weird. And I'm thinking of this from animation's perspective. They'd say, what is this weird thing? A little bumper on Nickelodeon? Okay, well, sure, we'll just buy it and air it in between shows. Then some guy 20 years later will be like, do you remember this weird short with this like turkey that was walking around? Like, it's just weird. Networks nowadays are so sterile and so afraid to do something that might disrupt their views that they're never willing to experiment anymore, and that's something I do miss.
Yeah, I can't speak for the 80s to my knowledge. I don't know if I know a lot of 80s cartoons, but in my head, I still remember the 90s cartoons of like the Scary Monsters, Angry Beavers,
Yeah, I'm in
Ren
my
and
early
Stimpy,
20s.
all this weird stuff that I just don't think you see replicated anymore.
But it's not even just the TV shows, because like those have been preserved. Those are out on DVD. I'm
Yeah.
talking about things that had like 5 episodes, aired once, and then disappeared forever, and some guy vaguely remembers half a plot, or maybe has an episode recorded on a VHS that they found in their closet, and all these weird stories. There's an art to this sort of lost stuff that networks nowadays aren't willing to be weird and experimental with stuff anymore, and just play something weird. That's something I think is missed. But I also understand why that's gone, because cable in general is just gone, so there's really no home for that anymore.
Cut the cord. Yeah, I don't see anyone experimenting with short runs of series. I mean, like, if a network or cable or whatever program wants to run a series of something, they want it to sell. Like, they want it to make all the money all at once. So it's like, we're not going to run a short experimental show because it's not going to, like, make any merchandise sales or whatever. But like again, I don't know the last time I've watched TV. It's been years. I don't watch TV anymore. I don't know because you mentioned Cartoon Network. I don't know what Cartoon Network does anymore. Once upon a time I did. I don't know now. I don't know what Nickelodeon's up to. I don't know what any of them are doing.
Nickelodeon, last I checked, is making more SpongeBob and nothing else.
SpongeBob will not die. I mean, SpongeBob's a great show. Don't get me wrong. I don't have a clue what the new ones are like. It's a great show, but oh my god.
It's not bad. I will say, since this got brought up, Nickelodeon has this thing, and they've been doing this for like 10 years now. Nickelodeon has this weird thing. It isn't like official per se, but it's pretty obvious. They have this thing where they'll put out a new show for a season, and if it doesn't do as well as SpongeBob view-wise, they just cancel it.
Nothing will ever do as well as SpongeBob.
Nothing will do that good. SpongeBob didn't do that good in season 1. Season 1, it wasn't that highly viewed of a show. It was season 2 when things started going off the ground. Obviously, a new thing isn't going to be that popular, but that's why there's so many shows. You'll look through a Wikipedia page and go, I don't remember any of these shows. They must have all been failures. And it's like, I guess they were, because they weren't as big as SpongeBob.
Yeah, failures relative to SpongeBob. But I mean, that's like literally throwing up anybody against the literal titan of Nickelodeon.
I've thought about that. What is the most popular cartoon character ever? Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, SpongeBob, Homer Simpson. What is the Snoopy, Scooby-Doo? What is the most popular? Garfield, maybe? I've thought about this. I wonder if you did a poll all around the world and asked them what do you think the most popular character is, what would they respond with,
That would be really interesting. I did find out, I don't think it's Garfield, but I did find out that Garfield is a lot bigger than I gave it credit for. I was watching a video about Garfield, and it's literally like $1 billion cartoon, like annually. Annually, the Garfield license makes $1 billion or something. I'm like, what? Still? It's so old. And that's international.
3... Oh, pardon me. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, and that's internationally too. Garfield's
so
big.
Popular, man. I grew up on Garfield cartoons.
I did too. I loved Garfield.
Garfield and Friends. Do you remember?
I don't remember Garfield and Friends. I mean, I say I grew up on Garfield. I didn't grow up on the Garfield cartoons. I grew up on the Garfield comic strips, I should say.
Yeah,
oh, I remember watching I had a couple of their books.
Yeah, I had some of the specials on DVD and videotape and stuff, and I'd watch those so much. It's the most popular comic strips financially. It's Garfield is number 1, Peanuts is number 2, and then way below those two is Dilbert. If anyone remembers,
I remember Dilbert. I love Dilbert.
Oh man, I haven't read a Dilbert comic strip probably ever in my life, like
ever?
Once or twice.
Man, it's an acquired taste, but
I'm sure I read like 15, and it's not because I disliked it, but it's just, I don't know, I don't work in an office, I have no relation to it. I've tried watching, there was a Dilbert show, do you remember this?
I never watched it, but there was.
Mm-hmm. It's not very good.
I can't imagine.
It's kind of boring.
It would be.
What you expect, yeah. I have it sitting on my DVD shelf. I have a lot of DVDs. I collect DVDs. So even if I think a show is like super average, I'll be like, cheap enough, I'll buy it, put it on my shelf.
Get it on sale? Is there a Blu-ray?
Yeah,
I want the Dilbert Blu-ray.
The Dilbert Blu-ray.
No one else has bought one.
Yeah, right.
Ever. I own the one and only Dilbert Blu-ray.
Yeah. It's funny, man. There's so few I can, I mean, there's enough. But I love animation so much, and I love stuff that, as much as I like the Cartoon Network and stuff, I also like things like Fox and back when Warner Brothers would have some cartoons that were for the
Yeah.
prime time and stuff like that.
I can't remember, like, what did I used to watch? Like WB Kids or whatever had Yu-Gi-Oh on it.
I'm pretty knowledgeable about obscure animation, so if you ever came to me like, what was this show where, like, these people, they had a baby and they had really big noses and they went through daily life. I think I saw it once on the WB. I'm like, that's Baby Blues. And they'd be like, okay. I just...
I don't even remember what I used to watch. It's so dumb. I don't. It's just colors on a screen. It's just lost to history now.
Yeah.
And then like I'll probably see like a screenshot of some old cartoon and be like, wait a minute, I feel like I've seen this.
Right, yeah. I watched so much TV and still do. I watch too much TV, if anything. I feel like Gex, where he just did nothing but quote television shows and everyone hated him.
Gex is one that I missed out on. I think I almost got a Gex game once. Like it wasn't a GameStop. It was basically a GameStop competitor before they would tanked, and it was between I was between getting Gex or another game called Vex.
Yes, Vex.
And we got Vex. Vex was
trying to remember.
I don't even remember. It was just the game where you played like as this little like. I remember him being vaguely like tribal or something. I forget what it looked like, because I remember you fight like this naked sumo in like the first level, like straight naked.
Oh, that's great.
Or something. Like it was a very weird art style. I don't think tribal's the right word at all, but I do not.
I'd have to look it up.
I think it's Vex with 2 X's. I'm trying to look it up. Vex game. Oh yeah, because he's like a little Wolverine cat clawed thing character. 2003 this game came out.
Oh, was that for the Xbox?
I think I've got it on the PlayStation 2. It was out on Xbox and on the GameCube.
I'd have to look it up. I don't remember this.
63% on Metacritic.
Huh, there you go. See, I never played Gex either. A lot of my knowledge of like weird, obscure things is from like people talking about it, like making reviews or bringing it up. And I just collected it all in my head, so if anyone ever had a question about anything, I could just,
Isn't it funny how you watch, like, if you watch enough reviews or comedy or whatever about, like, a certain game or something on YouTube, you feel like you've played it. Like, you feel like you have an opinion about it, even though you've never played it.
Exactly.
Like,
and that's the same for TV shows, too. Like, I watch so many YouTubers who talk about animation and stuff that I just know such obscure things, and I'd be like, I've never seen it, but I know of it,
I know of it, and I have for some reason, a passionate opinion about this thing that I've never watched myself.
I once got a text from a family member saying, was there ever a Dr. Seuss special that was like the Grinch, but it was Halloween? And I replied, Grinch Night was a 1977 special, blah, 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 like this long thing. And it's just, I don't know. I just know all this garbage. It's stuck in my head.
It was a Halloween Grinch?
Yes, called Grinch Night. It was from like 1980 or something. And it was about...
Grinch Night.
Yes, it was a prequel to The Grinch. And it was about how Grinch on Halloween night goes out and terrorizes the Who's.
I'd never heard of this. That is
Nobody
hilarious.
had. Hey, anybody out there, if you want to watch an experimental 70s piece of animation, check out Dr. Seuss, The Huber Bloob Highway, 30-minute special. You can thank me later. It's got great, colorful animation. Go check it out. Anyway.
I'll have to go back and try to find that, actually. See if I can.
There's all these weird things, man. I also collect VHS tapes. I was at a thrift store, and I asked the employees there, do you have any more VHS tapes in the back? I'd love to look at all of them. And they were like, yeah, we actually do, if you want to go look. So me and an employee walked back there, and as I was going through a stack of tapes, I found a Charlie Brown special, and I got excited, and he goes, oh, what'd you find? I said, it's an old 70s cartoon special. I really like those. And he was like, everyone's got to have their thing. He's just like...
He's like, all right.
Like, okay, people like you exist, okay.
If anything, he should just be more excited that you're about to take a bunch of VHS tapes off his hands.
Right, that's true, yeah. This has been going on for 30 minutes, and I haven't shut up. Do you have any questions for me? I can let you do the actual podcast.
This is the actual podcast. Listen, it's just a conversation about cartoons and stuff, I guess.
That's what it's become.
Look, this isn't a very formal podcast. I don't know the first thing about running, like, I don't know, an interview. And I think, like, the best way to get to know someone is just, what are you passionate about? Let's talk about that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think
I
I've made it pretty clear I like weird, obscure media and cartoons, so
it's
there
great.
you go.
It's great to talk to people about what they're passionate about, because it would be dumb if I sat here and, like, forced you to talk about something that you have so, what's your favorite brand of sock?
Oh, dude, I love the socks you get at Costco. They fit real well.
Let's talk about Costco for the next 12 minutes and see if we can pull that off. What's your favorite thing about Costco? I've never been in a Costco.
You've never been in a Costco? Count yourself lucky, kid. I've been going to Costco's all my life, and I got to tell you, crowded, loud, long lines, and horribly annoying.
Really? We just got a Costco in my area. We didn't have a Costco before, and we just got one in the area.
Pizza's really good. You could get a pizza.
Okay, so now we can talk about pizza.
It's giant. Yeah, they're really big. That's how I want my pizzas, big.
What's your favorite not Costco pizza?
Wegmans used to have really good pizza, and then they changed their style of pizza, and it became horrible.
Rigmans? Is that what you said?
Wegmans. Have you heard of Wegmans?
I've not. No.
A grocery store. They were kind of. Hold on. What was that just popped at the screen? Did you see that?
Where?
There's a red bar at the top. It said, red bar, and then something else. I couldn't read it before.
Oh, apparently our connection tanked for like a second, but I didn't hear anything go wrong, so I guess it's all right.
Don't worry about it. Wegmans, they're like a grocery store, but they're kind of like a frou-frou fancy, like new age grocery store. I don't know how to describe them. They're also pretty annoying, if I'm being honest. I just want a normal experience that with flickering lights in the ceiling and playing songs from the 90s. I want a normal grocery experience. I'm not special or fancy. I like to feel very simple. I don't know.
I don't know about the flickering lights, but I mean, if it's sitting there playing, I don't know, like alternative rock 90s, then I'm down.
I've heard once I heard one of my favorite songs at my local grocery store. I got really excited that they still played Bare Naked Ladies' Pinch Me. That's the song. It's Bare Naked Ladies' song Pinch Me. And I just heard it over the loudspeaker. I was like, oh my goodness, they're actually playing my favorite song.
The 90s was so long ago now.
It's funny, man. I didn't grow up in the 90s, truth be told, but I absorbed so much of the media from watching, like I said, YouTube videos and history videos. I watched a 2-hour video about the UPN network. A very good video, by the way, if you like learning about obscure networks, as I've already established.
I don't know if I know UPN network. I don't know if I know that one. I need to Google it.
Do you remember? Quick. UPN, it was like you remember the WB network?
Yes.
Okay, so UPN and WB, they were two networks, coexisted. They both were horrible in views. They both disintegrated low enough that they said, let's join forces, and they became the CW.
I see that now. Yeah, it was replaced by the CW, so it was before the CW. Okay, I probably just don't remember UPN. I probably watched it a little.
Yeah. They actually, they were the network that had my favorite show for 5 episodes. The show was, have you heard of Home Movies?
Home Movies?
Yeah, show Home Movies. It's an animated show. It's my favorite show ever. They ran it for 5 episodes, canceled it for low views, and then Adult Swim picked it up again, ran it for 4 more seasons.
For 4 more seasons, that's hilarious. Yeah. No, I don't think I have heard of it. That or I have blacked it out in my memory. I don't know. That's
possible. It's one of my favorite shows. It's very my sense of humor. It's about a kid who makes home movies, but he also has some life problems. He's has just a single mom. He goes to soccer practice with a drunken, crazed sort of man. But it's all cool. It's all comedy. It's all fun. But it's very dialogue based. They more or less just sit around and talk. There's very little going on,
Okay.
It's not really like my own cartoons, but if I could make my dream cartoon, I'd probably make a show like Home Movies.
That could be one of your side projects when you're not working on Space Station Arbitrary. You can
I will say, the art style of Space Station Arbitrary was heavily inspired by Home Movies. So if you look it up, you'd probably go, oh yeah, they kind of look like your characters. So.
I wonder if Home Movies got canceled specifically because it sounded too close to home, like what was the funniest home videos or something.
Right.
Because that's what
From
I
what
thought
I
you were going to
heard-
say it was about, was like just making home movies. But it's like, oh no, this is just a show. Okay.
Technically, it is about a kid who makes home movies, but it's a plot.
Right, with a plot, not just home movies.
Yeah. But no, it was canceled. What's funny is I remember watching an interview with the creators, and they said it was canceled for low views. But if a show got the views it got today, a network would be insanely excited about it, because views have just gone down so far that even the views back then, what was considered abysmal, now is considered like impressive to pull
Really?
in. So
That's wild, because it just seems like, but I guess not. Like I guess I don't know what the numbers are for, I don't know, in given any TV network, what the numbers are today compared to like the 90s.
What did the Oscars get this year? It was like really low, right? I don't remember.
I could have told you before it aired that it was not going to do well. Oscars, 2021 viewership. Let's find out.
Who watches that stuff?
I haven't watched it in so long. 10.4 million people watching.
That's more than I thought.
Which is apparently a 56% drop from the 23.6 million viewers from last year. So like literally more than half, or less than half of what they had last year.
I'm surprised it's getting that many views, if I'm being honest.
Well, I think it's still just like, TV diehards, people that, it's the thing that they watch every year, and so they tuned in. That, they're not the ones that are like on social media where everyone's just lambasting the Oscars all the time. But
it's like the Super Bowl. I used to tune into the Super Bowl not because I liked sports, but because I loved all the commercials.
That's what I was in it for.
The last few years, their commercials were so bad that when we dropped cable, I'm like, okay, I don't care anymore.
Even if you wanted to watch for the commercials and you liked the commercials or whatever, they were on YouTube the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So like
commercials, they're kind of similar to me with TV shows, where commercials are kind of like an art form that could air once or twice and then be completely forgotten about. So I always think it's interesting to find. Sometimes I'll just search commercials 1993 and then just find weird commercials for fun, or any other year, And it's really fun to just find these weird things for local businesses, and it's just, I don't know. I think that's another art form that died, and understandably, but I think it's fun to find weird commercials.
Yeah, I think that is like, especially just the old campy commercials. Yeah, like I don't know, some guy that owns a grocery store or something, or a hardware store, making a commercial to run TV, and it's just that guy. I think that's pretty dead. Except maybe in really small rural communities that run like local TV, they might still do that or what. I don't watch TV anymore, so I don't know. Yeah. But
there's a great commercial. You can find it on Twitter. It's an old like car insurance commercial, and this guy is walking through a dump of cars, and he's like, you can call me, blah blah blah, and I'll help you with your problem. And then a car from the sky, I'm assuming unintentionally from the pile, falls, nearly hitting him, and he just keeps walking and doing his bit. Like nothing happened.
I hope it's scripted, but also part of me hopes that this man is just that big a man. He's just like, no, I'm not going to react to this.
Yeah, and he was totally okay, so it's just like, what did I just watch? It's just so weird to find these things. Or you'll find like a weird pizza commercial with like weird inappropriate jokes because it's a local commercial, so I guess they thought they could do that. And you're just like, why did this air next to like, Saturday morning cartoons? It's so weird.
Oh, the things you could get away with because no one expected it to end up on the internet to be scrutinized.
Yeah, it's so funny, man. That's how so many people felt about. I always listen to DVD commentaries and like Simpson commentaries. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, there's a mistake here, but we didn't think someone would be analyzing it 30 years later, freeze framing every second."
Yeah,
it's true. That's what I do.
That's like when you watch those like compilation. I don't watch a lot of these, but you'll watch a compilation of animation errors in like movies and stuff. I
love animation errors. Oh my goodness! Not for a disrespectful reason, because as an animator, there are so many mistakes in my own work. I watch them just out of interest. I think they're fun to point out, especially if you can like understand how it happened. Like, this thing was moving here, so they accidentally miscolored his arm or something. I love that stuff.
Yeah, especially as someone who, like you were saying, since you do animation and you can kind of like figure out why they did what they did, I think that makes it more like as a casual person might just go, haha, funny, but like if you're someone that creates it, you're like, oh, okay, I can actually like, I don't know, relate to it or use it, or I think it makes it more interesting as opposed to just entertaining.
No,
But,
I mean, it's also interesting, especially if it's old cell. Do you know what a cell is? Cell animation.
right. Yes. I mean, I
You know
know
that? Yeah.
like at the vaguest degree because I don't
Right.
animate, but yes.
Because sometimes I'll say that to people and they'll be like, what the heck is that?" So it's interesting that it's old cell animations because everyone had to hand paint every drawing and hand color every drawing. So when there's a little mistake, it's not only understandable, but sometimes you could determine like, oh yeah, they just accidentally colored this the same color as the thing next to him. So it makes sense. It's just interesting to look at. Or oh, they mislayered this, accidentally putting the character's head above their mouth or something. It's just it's fun to look at.
God, like since you mentioned like the cell anime, like the fact that animation is just even possible just kind of blows my mind, right?
I don't know how people in the 90s, let alone like the 30s, bothered with it. I feel tired and like it takes forever on an iPad, and that's like a miracle from God compared to how they did it in the 90s. In the 90s, they'd send the rough to a studio who would then draw a rough, but like a fully moving rough. They'd then send that rough to Korea to color it on cells now, tracing the rough outline. They'd send that back and then redo some of it because they just naturally make mistakes, not speaking the same language and stuff, a little bit of oversights. And they just go back and forth with this until everything was good enough. It's so wild,
It really is like the entire chain of the entire process. I'll just say it again. It's a miracle that it even happens at all. Like what you were saying, like with a tablet, like doing it digitally from a tablet or whatever, like that is the easiest it's ever been ever. But like,
and yet it still feels like so much work,
more,
so I can't imagine.
More traditional animation, it just takes that workload that you can do digitally and just says, you know what? How about we do the same thing, but like 1,000 times more work.
1,000,000 times harder. Yeah, exactly. I have a few animation cells hanging up behind me. I think they're really fun to collect.
Yeah.
If you can get them at a good price. So they're like art pieces, I framed them. I put them on my wall. They're pieces of history,
They yeah, because it's art on a cell. It's not what you might typically think. Like someone says art, you might think, I don't know, landscape painting or something. But
yeah,
it literally is someone did art on a cell, and it kind of is art. It's kind of a niche art form, but I mean, that's everything.
So many
right?
people back in the day, all these studios, when they were done with a cartoon, a lot of times they'd just throw it away, the cells, because who would want them? They think,
right.
So they just burn them or toss them in a fire, whatever, and it's just crazy to me to think about how much art is missing. And obviously, you can't save every cell. I understand, but
yes, you can.
It's a shame when it's intentionally destroyed as opposed to given out to those who would enjoy it.
It just seems so. And I think it's because everything's digitized now, so everything is so easy to archive. It just needs to end up on a hard drive somewhere or on a server somewhere, right? Everything's so easily archivable that it just seems like such a shame that people didn't foresee that in the past to archive all these works that people want to partake in now for whatever reason.
Yeah, I will say not everything is fully digital. There is actually, from my understanding, they still do the rough on traditional paper and then scan all those papers into a digital computer to do the final. So there is still a lot of paper going around, but not as much celluloids.
Yes, certainly less. I couldn't speak to like how much is still done traditionally and how much is done digitally, but
I don't think anything is done cells. I think the last TV show was Ed, Edd n Eddy to ever use cells, from what I've heard.
Loved Ed, Edd n Eddy. And
that was like 2005. I never watched Ed, Edd n Eddy,
It's one of my favorite cartoons.
What's funny is I remember when I was really young, my parents wouldn't let me watch it because they're like, all of them are mean and they bully each other. You can't watch that. And then by the time I was old enough to like revisit these shows, I kept thinking, oh yeah, they didn't like that one, so I guess I just won't bother. So I never bothered watching it, or not bother, but I never got around to Ed, Edd n Eddy.
I mean, and I think you would appreciate, especially since I think you will appreciate it because you like cartoons and cool. You animate. So I think you have an appreciation for art. The art style is like just so really unique.
Cool. I love their tongues are blue and they wiggle. They never stand still. They're always moving around.
And yeah, and the way that their bodies kind of like shift and morph with whatever the context needs, like their tongues will turn giant and huge, or they'll stub their toe and their foot turns gigantic or whatever.
The sound effects are so well done.
The sound design in Ed, Edd n Eddy is nearly I can't think of another example. It is just nearly unmatched. They went hard on sound. If you actually take the time to like pick apart everything. It's like, oh, they went hard on sound design in this show.
I feel like an episode would still be entertaining if they took out the dialogue track and just left the animation with the sound effects. You'd still be like at awe, you know?
I feel like you could probably pull it off. Yeah. I think you
I
lose a lot
probably
of
should
context,
watch it
but
sometime. I
I
just
recommend it.
never got around to it. Yeah. When I think about just like visual like beauty of animation, I think of things like Futurama. Futurama had really good animation. They moved around
Yeah.
very smoothly. I think of they didn't move around too smoothly, but I really like the art style of something like Schoolhouse Rock, if you know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
There's just little things like that. I don't care for Flash. Do you know what Flash animation is? I don't care for Flash too much.
I mean, it depends on who was doing the Flash animation, but Flash has
Exactly.
its limitations for sure. And you could usually, if you were looking at a Flash animation, you knew you were looking at a Flash animation.
Flash animation has gotten so good now that it's harder to tell. But I like it when the character. My biggest gripe with animation of any show or whatever is when the character looks the same in every shot. I want them to look a little varied. They should express a little more. Something like what's a good example of as much as I like Bob's Burgers, they're pretty stiff. You know, they always look exactly the same in every shot. I always liked the cartoons like early Simpsons, like first few seasons where they never drew them on model. They're always a little off. I think that stuff is so entertaining and more appealing. And I try to make my characters look a little different in every shot, so it's always looking varied, you know? And with Flash, it's harder to make things look unique. It's not impossible. You can do it. You can do very impressive stuff with Flash. I have nothing against it. It's just not my medium of choice.
I think it when you have to break down like the economics of getting an animation done, I think things like you mentioned, like Bob's Burgers or whatever, it's like, yeah, it's stilted maybe in a sense, but it's also probably makes it a lot cheaper to produce, faster to produce, and more consistent, so that if people come to expect something from that show, they can expect it like every time. I think that like, especially with internet online content, I think that's the huge difference between producing for like a full show that's going to end up on TV or something versus someone just making cartoons for the internet, which shouldn't be downplayed. But I think that's one of the big differences is that when a studio is in charge of it, they have to make sure that like it's going to do well enough to support the studio, right? And that's where I think you lose a lot of that personal touch that I think you appreciate so much as an independent animator, right? Is that, you know, that like the early Simpsons before that they made their money and had a huge studio, the little I don't know what I'm looking for, but it being kind of unique looking or whatever.
It's it was Class Key Chupo, by the way, that did the first few years of Simpsons animations. That was the studio that did it. And they're the same studio that did Rugrats and All Real Monsters and stuff, so they're kind of known for having a weirder look.
Yeah.
But the only reason they stopped working with them is because they had like a dispute about like money or how things would arrange or something. So they went to another animation studio that they're very good. But the thing about The Simpsons is, for example, how they direct the animation to be done is to have the characters always on model and always proper. And in fact, the very first episode of The Simpsons that was made, if you find the original rough pilot online, the animation is so squash and stretch. It's very cartoony. It's very appealing, and it's very good, in my opinion. Sometimes the characters can go a little off model to too far, but I think it's very good. But whenever the creators talk about that original pilot, they say, oh, it's awful, it's terrible, it's disgusting, it's the worst thing you'll ever see. And so people started to think, oh, wow, I guess that looks bad. When I don't think it looks bad, it just doesn't look like what they wanted.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, it wasn't meeting. It's interesting.
They wanted it to look very stiff and very realistic. They wanted the Simpsons characters to move kind of like humans really move.
Right.
Well, the original pilot moved around like Looney Tunes characters would squash and stretch and jump around. And it's very impressive and very good. It's just not what they were looking for.
I wonder if that's because that's what they were looking for at the time. Because I wonder what they would have thought. Because you can only ask them now in hindsight. But at the time, if you could ask them at the time, were they actually dissatisfied with the animation, or were they quite satisfied with it and only became dissatisfied with it once their smoother, stiffer animation became the successful one, right? The successful version.
Yeah.
So they became partial to that because that's what blew up. You know what I mean?
They've said many times in interviews that when they first watched it and got the whole group together, they all were like stunned with how quote unquote bad it looked. So I think even at the very beginning they didn't like it because that episode, it was reshot, it was redone. A lot of the original work was thrown away, so they definitely weren't happy with it at the time. But again, I think it looks pretty appealing. It's just not what they wanted. There's a scene where Marge and Homer are dancing, and they're dancing beautifully in very smooth animation, and they said, no, they need to look stiff, like they haven't danced in 20 years, because they haven't. They're an old married couple just going out again for in years. And that makes sense, but again, a lot of people took that to mean, oh, the original animation looked bad. It didn't look bad, it looked very impressive. They just weren't moving like they wanted them to move.
Well, yeah, because that's that's just direction for the scene. Yeah, they weren't supposed to have. They're not supposed to be professional dancers, so they're not supposed to look like professional dancers or whatever. I think that's more a question or a statement on the scene direction than it is the actual animation itself.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I like it when it's more cartoony and stretchy and off model. I think the worst a show can be is if it's too on model. There are very few shows where I'm okay with them being on model. I think King of the Hill is one of them because they practically just look like humans, Yeah,
it depends on what level of realism you want from your show, as well as like what degree of familiarity. Like King of the Hill is a show that is supposed to feel like one down to earth on some level, but also like familiar. It's not supposed to exist in. Like, like if you're talking about The Simpsons, Springfield is a made-up city. It's a made-up Springfield out in made-up United States, right? It's a very, not real place.
Yeah, nobody knows where Springfield is.
King of the Hill
is in Texas.
And it's supposed to feel very much like Texas.
Yeah, exactly. So, sorry, I had to move something. I was going to make a lot of noise, so I just muted it for a second.
Oh, you're fine. But that's... Yeah.
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 I don't know.
Yes. Indeed. Quite.
Quite. Yes. Quite.
Yes. Quite. King of the Hill. Yes.
Yes. I'm quite fond of the episode where Bobby keeps kicking people in the crotch. Yes.
And shouting, "That's not my purse." Or no, what?
I don't know you.
I don't know you.
That's my purse.
That is an early one. That is an early episode.
That's season 6, episode 1, I think.
That's not season 6, surely.
Yeah, it is.
No.
I swear. I've been rewatching the show lately, so it's fresh in my mind.
Fine.
Yeah.
You win this one, Pinata Time.
I win them all. My favorite Hank Hill line, because I say this and then people go, he didn't actually say that. And I'm like, yeah, he did. My favorite Hank Hill line is, my God, are you still talking?
You know what? I feel like I know I've heard him say that.
Yeah, it was the smoking episode where they all were addicted to smoking.
Okay.
But that one makes me laugh so hard because it's so funny because, again, whenever I say it, people are like, well, he didn't actually say that, right? You're making that up. I'm like, no.
Oh, he said it. He said a lot of things.
He really did.
That show did run for a while.
It was like 13 seasons. This is so funny. People are going to hate this. The reason it got canceled, did you hear why it got canceled?
No.
Because Fox, I'm assuming money reasons per se, but they wanted to produce a new show called The Cleveland Show.
Wait, is the Cleveland Show what canned
King
of the Hill?
More or less.
I don't think I knew that. I remember the Cleveland Show happening, but I mean, Seth MacFarlane, Family Guy was huge.
You already had like 2 other shows.
I mean, Cleveland Show was I didn't like it.
I truth be told, I've seen like 3 episodes, and I actually thought they were kind of funny. But
it could be funny. It really could be.
It doesn't mean it should have gotten King of the Hill canceled.
It just didn't do anything, in my opinion, didn't do anything that you couldn't get out of basically Family Guy.
Yeah.
And I was already by the time Cleveland Show was coming out, I was getting pretty tired of Family Guy, so I guess that's probably why I didn't like Cleveland Show.
I like the first 3 seasons of Family Guy, and everything else ranges from okay to awful in my book.
Yeah, like I'm not. I don't know, something about the vibe of that show went in a different direction.
This is my guess, right? I've thought about this because I have that kind of time on my hands.
Why not?
What I think happened was the first 3 seasons of Family Guy, the show wasn't successful. They canned it after 3 seasons. And when a show isn't successful, the network is scared to let the creatives do what they want because they're afraid that something scandalous could come out of it and they could get in some trouble. But if a show's popular, they let them do whatever because, if some controversy comes up, who cares? It's a popular show.
Yeah.
So when the show came back, they probably said, do anything you want. Do whatever you want. You can be as edgy as you want. You can make whatever jokes you want. And I think that actually hurt them in the long run because it kept them from being as creative. Because why come up with a clever joke when we could just show, a naked person? Ha ha ha,
Right. Yeah, you're just going for the cheap laughs instead of having to actually work for it.
Getting free reign actually hurt them. So I think the first 3 seasons, they had to be more creative to sneak around cruder jokes,
Yeah. Maybe that plays a part into it.
That's my take, at least.
Could be. The fact that they were just allowed to run wild with whatever they want meant that they didn't really have to work as hard, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I can't speak to it, but maybe.
It's a tough thing. It could just be that the show ended and came back. Sometimes people move on or their tastes change and things are different after. I mean, you look at a show like The Office, creative people moved on, literal people in the show moved on. Things are just going to change in the style of a show.
Especially when a show runs a while.
Yeah, exactly. And that's natural, and that's not even necessarily bad, but there's going to be peaks and hills and valleys and stuff,
Absolutely. I know, just glancing at, just to bring everybody back that's listening, just a glance at Pinata Time's YouTube channel, links below.
I've been going on about other things.
No, don't apologize. Shut up. Don't you dare apologize. Take that back. No, I was just going to say, speaking of things changing over time, I know I've perused your channel even on YouTube, and you've been doing this for a couple of years now, uploading videos, and just looking at the thumbnails. What?
Consistently for a year.
Consistently for a year.
Before then, but I recently, April 7th was the 1-year anniversary of Space Station Arbitrary, so it's been a year of that.
And I think that's great. I was just looking at all the thumbnails from all the old stuff, and it's like clearly, I feel like your taste and style have changed for sure. And I think
once you draw a character enough, they evolve into the best version of them they can, is what I usually say. So if you look at some of the older animations, the characters, even I look at them, I'm just like, oh, they look so ugly. What was I thinking?
You were thinking you were doing your best you could at the time.
You'll never be good at drawing a character unless you draw them a bunch. So right. I had to draw these characters so many times that eventually I came up with what I thought looked better, And I'm sure they'll continue to evolve, just naturally.
For sure. And I look forward to seeing if you keep up with the Space Station Arbitrary for, say, another year.
I plan to keep going as long. I want to keep doing it till I don't want to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you know what? That's fair.
There's two halves of me, right? My two thoughts of Space Station Arbitrary is I'd like to keep doing it for as long as I want, but it's also not the thing I want to be doing 20 years from now.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that checks out.
It's hard to, sometimes people keep going long after they don't want to, and sometimes people keep going long after they shouldn't keep going. It's hard to tell when to stop. So I'm going to try to decide when, but I think it's only been a year. I think it's still a brand new baby. It has more wings to go. It has more places to go.
I'm glad to hear that, because I found out today that apparently I wasn't subscribed to the channel. I thought I did that the other day.
No.
So I am, just to make it official, I am officially subscribed. So I look forward to seeing your future progress as you continue to develop the show and your art and all that awesome stuff. We're here at the end of the podcast, I'm afraid. We've been going about an hour.
Oh no.
I know.
We just started.
Oh yeah, we just started. We got 7 more hours to go. It's an all-day event. No.
Is that true? Is there anything else you wanted to ask me since I kept talking? I felt like I took over the show.
No, this is exactly what I was hoping for, was you to take over the show and talk about anything at all that you wanted to talk about, basically.
That's great, because I sure do like talking about random stuff that doesn't matter. Have you listened to my podcast? I have. I've listened to quite a bit. Yeah.
This is what I do. We just talk about stuff that doesn't matter for half an hour or longer.
That's great, man.
So
I love it.
I've been here.
Is there anything else you had? I'll go ahead and let you ask. I didn't know.
Let me think about it for a sec. Anything else I can ask you? Yeah, I've got. You know
Not
what?
putting you on the spot. If you don't have anything, you don't have to. I just
I've
felt
got
that
like little
I was
stuff,
taking
but
over.
maybe we'll just save that for like the next time I have you on a guest.
I'd
as a
love
guest
to do it
here.
again. This was really fun.
Maybe I'll write some more stuff down because I've got all the usual stuff. This will be a teaser for people listening, maybe. So for the next time, I've got all the usual stuff like how did you make your star? What stuff do you use? All the typical stuff, right?
Yeah.
But we'll jump into that another time. I think
No worries, man. No worries. Do you edit this or do you just leave this whole thing going? Like, do you put this whole thing out?
I've done some editing before, but it's very light. It's very light editing.
Funny, yeah.
I just put some stuff. So this whole thing's gonna come out basically as is.
That's
very
great,
light
man.
stuff, yeah. So
I love it.
I mean,
Well, this was great.
Yeah.
Thanks again for letting me on the show. I really appreciated being able to talk about stuff I like.
yeah, and thank you for being here, of course. Just a reminder to everyone listening that I've been with Pinata Time here on the Hasty Podcast. You can check them out on YouTube. Look up Pinata Time. You also have a Twitter for anyone that wants to tweet at you at Pinata Time Tunes.
You know it all. I don't even need to say anything.
That's right. Well, those are the two things I know for sure. I know you've got your YouTube. I know you've got your Twitter. Is there anything else that you want me to shout out for you?
I mean, I'm on Newgrounds. If anybody is hip to that lingo,
That's
it's just
right.
Pinata Time. You can find me there. I think that's about it.
Cool. I'm gonna try to look it up right now. Pinata Time.
Oh no.
Pinata Time. I think it comes right up too. Just all one word. Pinata Time.
Yep,
there it is.
Go.
One word on Newgrounds. Pinata Time. You start putting in the search bar. There it is. You got it. So you got Newgrounds. You got YouTube. You got Twitter.
If anybody needs an episode to start with, or not start with, but my most recent episode, Ralph versus the Volcano, I think it has some rough parts or whatever in editing, I guess, but it's the newest episode, and I think it's one of the best episodes, so that's one to go to, I guess.
Go to that one. Check it out.
If I were to shout out one, just to...
And then if you're feeling really spicy, Pinata Time has a Teespring. You can go buy a Space Station Arbitrary t-shirt.
Yep. I'll go ahead. I'll let you in on a little secret. Assuming my statistics on the website are accurate, I don't believe anyone has bought any, which is fine, but it makes me laugh.
I mean, no, that's fair. Don't worry. I have a store too. No one uses it. Again, it's fine.
I'm not saying that to say like buy my stuff. I was just saying that because I think it's funny. It makes me laugh.
No, I get it. I'm there with you. I feel that.
I bought the t-shirt. I bought the mug. I have it sitting on my shelf.
I don't buy my own stuff, so
you don't. I totally do.
I bought a couple. I've got a couple.
Egotistic monster like that. What I have is I have a little shelf dedicated to, I call little accomplishments, which is to say the mug. I got a letter for winning a award for one of my shorts. Stuff like that. I just put my little things there. I don't know.
You should be able to rep yourself.
Be proud of that. Just gloating about myself. You're like, okay, time to stop the podcast. And I'm like, well, I've also done this and I've accomplished this.
Listen, I don't know where exactly in the world you are. I'm from the Midwest here in the United States. We have long goodbyes.
Yeah, that's so true, man. We just keep it going.
I could be here trying to say goodbye for the next hour, and that would just be normal.
That's great, man. Like I said, I also bought the t-shirt, but I accidentally bought it in like a size too big, so it's like giant on me, so I just sleep in it sometimes, but it's so big.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh.
It's like, this is now my pajama shirt. Or if you start streaming again in the future for God knows why, and you're like, you can just like have the shirt.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Like
Alex has your shirt. Alex has one of your shirts.
He does. I don't know which one.
I think Alex said he would listen to this, so if he actually is listening to this,
he's
hi,
listening
Alex
to this.
I like you.
hey, Alex. For anyone that's I keep saying for anyone that's listening. If you're those of you that are listening, I'm talking about Alex, who was a guest several weeks ago. Alex Duquette.
Yes.
That's right. I say if you're listening, it's like if anyone's listening, they're hearing it now.
Please just listen.
Please make it this far. Anyway. With that, I really do need to cut this podcast here.
Totally
so that has been a Hasty Podcast. Like I said, we were with Pinata Time as a special guest. Hope to have him on once again in the future. If you enjoyed this podcast,
really fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. No, interrupt me anytime.
Really thanks for having me on. I'd love to be on again. That's all I'll say. I'll shut up.
Thank you so much. No, interrupt me anytime. I shut up real quick. But that That's for the podcast. If you're listening to this on an audio thing, give it a follow on the Spotify's and such. If you're watching this on your YouTube, give it a subscribe. Do all the things. If you want to support the show for free, share it with your friends and family. Let people know we exist. If you would like to support the show financially, you can do so on patreon.com/Weston Hasty, where for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show and help support an independent creator of sorts. We do have a new weekly show on Patreon for patrons only that is an extension of this podcast. On Wednesdays, we release an extra 10-minute bonus episode of the podcast every week. So you can check that out by going to patreon.com/Weston Hasty. Thank all of you so much for listening. Thank you for joining me, Pinata Time.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me. I'd love to do it again. This was a blast.
And until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, wash your hands. I'm out here. Bye.
Bye, partners. Bye, partners.